Awesome. So I guess let's go ahead and get started real quick. First and foremost, how are you doing this morning?
I am good. I am poolside right now and a cup of coffee in my hand. And there's a nice storm rolling in, so hasn't hit yet, so I can still be outside in nature, which is a big treat for me because we've been on the road. And I have not had like 5 minutes to myself for probably 2.5 weeks. So
Oh, I
this
can
is awesome.
imagine.
And there's this beautiful red cardinal staring at me right now. So I'm a nature head. I'm a hippy dippy do. So this is lovely. And I'm in this really cool 60s kind of swing, just swinging away today. So this is like fantastic for me. And I love that it's like, I love storms. So it's nice and windy and cool. And it's a beautiful day here in Tulsa.
Well, that is awesome to hear. And yes, speaking of the tour, we understand it only kicked off just really a couple of days ago, about a week or so. What's the vibe and the reception been like so far?
Oh, it's been a lot of fun. We played Anton's a couple days ago, and the legendary. Well, there's so many different people that have played there, but for me, Stevie Ray Vaughan played there, so that's really cool. And it was like a huge crowd. They were awesome. They were ready to sing and have fun and just party and enjoy the new music into retroing with me, which I love. So we had a blast, yeah. And prior to this tour, I've been doing some other stuff in the UK. So yeah, it's been normally I don't start my tours like coming from other things, but it's been a very busy year already. So it just kind of worked out that way that we just like were working up to the tour, and I was like, oh, okay, keep going. So I'm literally enjoying today. I enjoy, of course, being on stage. That as well is like a little escape for me. Being in cars and traveling and being on airplanes is not my favorite. I'm not going to lie. So when I do land someplace and I can actually hit the stage, I feel like, yeah, okay, it's all worth it.
Definitely. Travel
So
can
yeah,
definitely take a lot out of you. I know that myself.
it
And
really, really, really does.
yes, I am glad you got to go to Austin though and play at Antone's. And speaking of that, we know that there's a cookbook coming out and that you are a self-proclaimed foodie. Did you find any interesting eats there in Austin?
We didn't really have a chance to do too much, unfortunately. So that was one night we didn't even have dinner. It was that crazy. I had done, uh, that morning I did interviews. We went to sound check. And I was told about these great tacos around the corner that
Hmm.
never happened. And then later that night, we literally went to bed without any food. So I
Oh,
was like, oh, I think we missed it in this town. But I've been to Austin so many times. And it is a great, great, great town, great city to be a part of. And now I'm here in Tulsa, and I am definitely going to take in some of their definitely culinary favorites. I was at the radio station earlier this morning, and they've given me a list of places to go, and I am not missing this time. Today's my day
awesome.
off, so we are going to do interviews, and then we're going to hit the town and just go and have a good time with some definitely some of the restaurants that they've suggested. So today is an eating day.
That sounds great. I always love one of those. And now, speaking of the cookbook, we understand that's going to come out, I believe, next month. So, with that, is there a favorite recipe in the book that you're looking forward for people to try?
Oh gosh, I mean I love them all, of course. Our puffy cheesy burgers are pretty cool. They're just little cheesy bites. They're just little burger bites. So, it's got your pickles and your onions in the actual meat. So we kind of roll those up, and so they look like a little meatball, and then we roll them with a puff pastry, and then we
Awesome.
bake those. So, they're little mini bites. I love little appetizer food. Sometimes, again, obviously, I didn't even get food the other night. So
Right.
we are running just as fast as we can, literally. So anything that I can put in my hand, anything that I can make for the band on the road as well, is a lot of fun. I love my piggies in a blanket because I stuff them with mac and cheese as well.
Ooh, that sounds great.
So, and you can put a nice hot sauce with it. I put a little paprika on mine. So it just has a little bit of a smoky paprika kick to it. But we in the cookbook we're very sensitive to people's allergies or tastes and things. So we always have like options. You can omit this if you want, or you know if you really want to go there. I of course have my own spice blends as well. Let's taco 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 and hip hop hot harissa and rockstar zatar. So
Awesome,
we
awesome.
always wink a little bit to those if you want to just kind of do a light dusting on most of the foods. You know, you can have my spice blends.
Nice, nice. And as far as those foods go, of course, a child of the 80s myself as well. What was your favorite comfort food from back then?
Chicken pot pie.
Oh,
So we
love it.
do a chicken pot pie in there. Now my mom used to sometimes make them for me after school. So she would go old school and bake them. But you know, if not, she would just get the chicken pot pies like we see the little packets
Hmm.
from the grocery store. But I, being an East LA girl, I love spice. I always had to zhuzh mine up a little bit. So we've done the Mexican style chicken pot pie. And you know, I put cilantro in there. I, you know, if you want jalapeno in there, you can. So it's not overly spicy. Again, there's some options to level it up if you'd want, but definitely we've changed a little bit of the concept of the classic chicken pot pie.
Nice, very nice. So far on the tour, what's been your favorite song to perform live?
Oh, well, it's always, I think we're alone now. I mean, you know, it's the last song of the night, but you know, people are primed. We've had a good time so
Hmm.
far, you know, and I always look forward to just really engaging with the fans on that. I love when people start doing busting out in the dance, you know. It's a lot of fun.
It really is a lot of fun. And I'll be honest, like I said, growing up in the 80s, I think I was around 6 or 7 years old. And we had just a VHS of all the recorded MTV music videos. That was one of my favorites as a 6 or 7 year old. It's
Oh,
just something
yeah.
about that song. It's just so fun.
Yeah, and I still do the dance. So there's that.
Oh,
There's the
I've
highlight
seen
of the
clips
night.
and you still have it. You can still do it. So, with that being said, it seems to pop out every few years, like just out of the blue. For example, it appeared in a memorable scene in the movie Ted in 2012, and now, of course, it's popped back up in Stranger Things. So, what is it about the song, do you think, that just seems to pull people in every few generations?
Oh gosh. I don't know. There's a magic to the song that, you know, I really can't put my finger on it. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine a couple of days ago, and she was just kind of saying, you know, I mean, we became friends later. So, you know, she was like, girl, I grew up listening to this song. And it was exactly what I was going through. You know, the cheekiness of my first kiss, you know, and I wanted to tell my mom, but yet I didn't know if she'd be like, you know, give me a big lecture, like, oh, now you're kissing, so it's going to go to the next thing, and you know, and that. And she goes, and I didn't want to hear that because it was just a kiss. That's all I really wanted to do. I just wanted to be with my boyfriend and was innocent. And I remember holding his hand, just going, my heart would just like beat, 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 and there was nothing smutty about it, or you know, it was such innocent fun, you know. But it was that first contact with somebody, you know, that you liked and you cared about, and they thought you were cool or pretty or whatever it was, you know. And it just it made you feel special.
Hmm.
And that song really just said it. It just really, you know, it was, I, you know, I think we're alone now. That time, that talking on the phone, and all of that, and looking forward to that phone call, you know, after, even if you saw your boyfriend or girlfriend at school, you know, it didn't matter. It was like going home and then being able to talk privately, and
Hmm.
you know, being blushing and silly and laughing, and you know, hoping that you were saying everything right. And you know, it was just all of that. There was something that really, that song just touched him, you
Yeah.
know, it just really just said it all.
Yeah, and it's become so nostalgic for so many people. I mean, just looking at that, even in Stranger Things, just see as soon as I saw the cassette cover, I knew what was coming, and it just immediately took me back to that place. And the '80s were such a fun times. Whether you were a teenager or a little kid, it was just a great period in American history. As far as that goes, If there's one thing from nostalgia that you could bring back from that 80s decade, what would it be for you?
Oh, let's see. You know, I've even considered putting a landline back in my house. The other day it was just, again, I love modern technology, but the constant bombardment of
Yeah.
having a device all the time where you feel like you have to respond to everything. The other day I literally was like, okay, no, I'm going to respond to everybody at 2 o'clock, and I'm going to check my phone again at 6 o'clock because this is
Yeah.
too much. I'm
Yeah.
now talking to like 50 different people. And for me, of course, I'm promoting the cookbook and I'm out on tour. So a lot of it is business, but you still have random people now who can
Oh,
reach
yeah.
out to you. Hey, girl, which again, I do love. But, back in the day, it was like you didn't have this overstimulation. If you went to work, you were with your coworkers, your kids went to school.
Yeah.
Then at night, you came home, you sat around the table, and you got to know what everybody's day was like. You called your family or whatever you had to do, but work was work. That was
Yeah.
done.
And there was a
Now, from
certain,
working from home, it's 24 hours a day.
yeah.
You get the random text from friends. You're talking to your kids all day long, and then you're looking at social media. It just doesn't stop.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think, for me, it would be just having that human contact. Going in neat
Yes.
malls were very big because it wasn't just shopping. You actually went to the mall and had lunch
Yeah.
with your friends. It was a thing.
Yeah.
My
Very much
mom
so.
went to lunch with her friends there, and then I would go someplace else separately. I'd go to the food court and
Yeah.
see my friends. So it was and it's kind of sad because a lot of the malls are closing now.
Yeah.
You don't have that one intimate place where everybody meets anymore.
Yes. And I'm glad you said a landline because that's one thing I try and explain to kids and teenagers now is cell phones are great, but have you ever had to try and call your crush on the landline and not know who's going to pick up that phone?
Well, that was the thing. I mean, there's a spot in this show all this time
Yeah.
where I have an old school phone and I pick it up and I say I'm calling all my 80s people, but I do talk about, how it is great to have modern technology, but do you remember having to be home
Hmm.
when that person said they were going to call you, waiting for that phone call? Or,
Yes.
if you were like me at my house, somebody was always on the phone when I was supposed to get that phone call,
Yep.
so I'd be like standing in the hallway going, Mom, get off the phone, get off the phone, get off
Yep.
the phone. He's supposed to call me now, or my girlfriend's supposed to call me right now, or whatever it is. And or the opposite, my mom yelling in the background, Tiffany, get off the phone. Tiffany, get
Yeah.
off the phone.
Or God forbid, they call and your sibling picks it up and is not kind.
Exactly. But also, I mean, you couldn't screen your calls. You
No.
had to like pick up that phone. So I mean, the answer machine was like the answer to being able to screen your calls. You'd see who was calling first and then you pick it up.
Right.
But I mean, that was like woohoo, really, you were pretty fancy then. But I mean, again, even back in the day, we didn't have phones. So if you said you were going to be someplace, meet me here, you really had to be there,
Yeah.
you know? So it was the thing. It was again that human communication. I think now it's funny because like a lot of times, we see people that again, one of my friends was saying I was just, at this party and I was talking to somebody and I text them and I could see them across the room and I could see them ignoring my texts. They
Oof.
didn't know I was there. And I was like, yeah, see, that's the thing now.
Yeah.
You can really hone on people where they're at, what they're doing. You can see. I go, we didn't have that. You
No.
had a sense of privacy.
Yes.
And, it was pretty golden actually to have
Agreed.
that.
I agree. And speaking of modern technology, so we understand in 2027 there's going to be a new album released, a reimagining of some classics. Are these going to be completely new arrangements? And are there going to be any new songs on that album?
We're not sure if there's going to be any new songs because we probably want to keep it kind of classic, but they are going to be reworked.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
So they
Awesome.
are the greatest hits reworked.
Okay. And as far as, we talked about the song coming back up in Stranger Things. Were you a fan of the show? And if so, who was your favorite character, or did you find you would have related to at that age?
Well, gosh, I am a fan of the show. I love the show. So to be a part of it, I had no clue, I had no tip off. That was such a surprise. What a great surprise. So very, very happy about that. I'm loved all the characters. I know it. I mean, I love Winona Ryder, of course,
Yeah.
because she's my childhood, and it was just great to see her, you know, back
Yes.
and just being just her. I've always been a huge fan. And of course, again, I grew up watching her. So, I would follow her to the ends of the earth and anything she did. And then she was part of this really cool 80s, show, take on the 80s,
Yeah.
basically from Stranger Things. So, I loved every bit of it. I from the beginning to the final. I cried at the final. I was like, no, I don't want it to be over.
Oh yeah.
It's like I felt like the bottom had dropped out because I really enjoyed the show for so many reasons. I'm a sci-fi fan. It had all my favorite characters. I love all the actors. But also it was my childhood.
Yeah.
There was times I'd watch the show and I'd chuckle because of
Yes.
the terminology or because they would say or do something that I had done before, or this small town, because I was in a small town. Even though I'm from LA, it made sense riding our bikes up and down the street. I used to have my bikes. That was my jam. So that was fun, but then also sometimes it made me sad
Oh
because
yeah.
I would see something, like a sofa or, a cup or, the set, something like that, or even a shirt that somebody wore that I was like, my mom wore
Yep.
that, or I had that. I
Yep.
remember that. I missed that. And it kind of made you sad.
Yes.
It made you sad for your childhood. Like, that was just yesterday. Where
Oh
did it
yeah.
go? And it made me really miss my grandmother, and it really made me miss my mom because they'd passed on. So, there was times like my fiance would look at me and he was like, "Why are you crying?" I'm like, "Because my mom had a cup like that. Like, you don't understand. Like,
Yeah.
that was everything. And I just miss being at my grandma's and I just miss my childhood." And, and he was like, "This is like a happy show." I'm like, "Well, it's making me sad right now. I don't know. But it was all of that emotion. If you're a true 80s kid, it was just so
Yes.
well done.
Yeah.
There was nothing, no, there was no skimping on it. It
Nope.
really was everything. And, again, when I saw the last episode, I literally went right back to the beginning and binge watched the entire series.
And it's
I
worth
just
it.
could, I just couldn't say, I'm done. Holly is probably my favorite character. Yeah, I didn't see her up in really becoming such a powerful force at the end of the series.
Yes,
Even
definitely a
without my
breakout.
music involved, she was definitely a breakout. So, but I kind of I liked her sass and her attitude, from the very beginning. She reminds me of my little sister, and that's why, because I was much more, the boisterous, always something going on, kids coming in the house and this and that. And of course, my baby sister was just like taking it all in and shunned to the side and just be quiet, do whatever, and then looking at all, like, my sister was always like just looking at all these variables happening, all these characters in the house. And then later on, she found her voice. So, it just really reminded me watching her grow up as well.
That is great. And of course, we have to, of course, wrap up here. Just I can have one final question for you. So I also work with kids when I'm not doing this, and I have a choir class that's just across from where I usually work. They always tell me, usually the girls, but they tell me, "Sir, we're doing the song from Stranger Things in choir," and it always comes down to one of two. It's either Never Ending Story or I Think We're Alone Now, and they
Oh, I
they
love
love it.
that.
Yes. So
Well,
with
thank you for being a part of my world and making
yeah,
me a part of yours. I
yes.
appreciate that.
And if you could, any of the girls that want to get into girls and young ladies who want to get into music or singing in general, what advice would you give them, or what would you want to tell them?
Singing is just it's therapy. It's a part of my life. I sing to myself in the bathtub. I sing, on stage. So it is just it's how I express myself. And if that's, rather it a lot of people go, "Well, I only sing in a choir or I sing at church." I go, "That's the magic of it though." You know, you're getting something out of it and you're sharing that gift with others. So it doesn't always have to be, on a record or on a big stage. It is a language between people, and it's something that you do from your source of your body. So it's something you kind of have to do if you really love music. I mean, that's the same as playing an instrument. It is soothing to our soul. So I always, when I meet other people who are musicians or vocalists, I go, "Hello, fellow soul sister or brother," because it really is a soul thing. It makes us happy. So just enjoy it, keep doing it no matter what, never let it go. I mean, I really envy a lot of my friends who play piano, and they're not even doing it for any other reason but themselves. They're like, "Oh, I learned piano as a kid, and I don't know, I just play every once in a while, and I'm trying to learn piano now." So, because it's just something I want to do for myself.
Awesome.
Music is such a soothing element. So, it's something that should just bring you some joy.
I agree completely with that. And of course, thank you for your time today, Tiffany. I want to tell everyone out there, if they haven't, we want to have the tour dates on the website. So if they have the chance, if you're in their city, they can go and see a show. Thank you so much for talking with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys. Sending love.
Take care.